We'll cover chemical bonding and Lewis structures. The chemical properties of atoms primarily depend on their valence configuration. They seem to have a tendency to be noble gas-like, meaning losing, gaining, or sharing electrons, so that they end up being surrounded by the same number of valence electrons as the noble gas atoms, meaning 8 electrons around them, except if we talk about helium, it only has 2. The tendency of atoms and the molecules to have 8 electrons in their outer shell, or 2 for hydrogen, is called the octet duet rule. A Lewis symbol is a symbol in which the electrons in the valence shell of an atom or ion are represented by dots placed around the letter symbol of the element. Valence electrons are those in the S and the P blocks. Electrons are placed singly on each side before they are paired, just like we did with Hund's rule back in the previous chapter. Sodium has 1 valence electron to account for, so we would put 1 dot on sodium. Magnesium has 2 valence electrons, so we would have to place 2 dots, but they're going to have to be at different locations. They can't be on the same side. Aluminum has 3 valence electrons, so we place 3 dots around aluminum, all singularly. Silicon has 4 valence electrons, so we place 4 dots, all singularly as well. Phosphorus has 5 valence electrons, so now we have to start pairing. So we have 4 singles, and then we will pair one of them. Sulfur has 6, so we do 4 singles, and then we pair 2 of them. Chlorine has 7, so we'll do 4 singles, and then we pair 3. Argon has 8 valence electrons, so we will put 4 singles and then pair all 4. Note that the group number on the traditional periodic table indicates the number of valence electrons. Group 1 tend to need 1 electron, group 2 or 2 electrons, group 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, etc. For ions, dots are added or taken away depending on the charge. Square brackets are drawn, and the charge is indicated in the upper right-hand corner. The magnesium atom has 2 valence electrons. Its Lewis symbol has 2 dots. Naturally occurring magnesium ion has a charge of 2+. This means 2 fewer electrons compared to the magnesium atom. Lewis symbol for magnesium ion has no dots and a 2+ charge. The fluorine atom has 7 valence electrons. Its Lewis symbol has 7 dots. Naturally occurring fluoride ion has a charge of -1. This means 1 additional electron compared to the fluorine atom. Lewis symbol for fluoride ion has 8 dots and a -1 charge. By following the octet duet rule, we can say that the atoms end up as ions with a noble gas-like configuration, or as being isoelectronic with a noble gas. The goal of the gaining and losing electrons is it's trying to get to that noble gas configuration, that octet. It wants 8 electrons around. A Lewis electron dot formula is an illustration used to represent the transfer of electrons during the formation of an ionic bond. there is a transfer of electrons from the metal to the nonmetal, giving each species a complete octet. An ionic bond involves the attractions of oppositely charged ions for each other. An example, let's look at the transfer of electrons from magnesium to fluorine to form magnesium fluoride. The magnesium has 2 electrons to give, whereas the fluorines have only 1 vacancy each. As you can see, magnesium has 2 electrons, and the fluorines have an empty spot location for an electron to be given. Their goal is for both of them to get an octet, so they can easily be done if magnesium gives 1 of its electrons to each one of these fluorines. Then magnesium would lose its 2 electrons in its 3s orbital. Eliminating that will give it an octet on its 2s2 and 2p6. So it would have an 8 around its nucleus, as well as fluorine will also have 8 around them. So the magnesium will give its electron to each of the fluorines, thereby getting an octet around the fluoride, each of the fluorides, and magnesium now has an octet with its 2s2, 2p6 level. So everything has an octet. Consequently, magnesium can accommodate 2 fluorine atoms. What happens is there's a transfer of electrons from the metal to the nonmetal, and an ionic bond is formed by the attraction of the opposite charged ions for one another. So the ionic bond is this actual attraction between the charged particles. Homework 64.